beautiful, beautiful sounds of Les Cats. And Les Cats is Norbert Stachel and his wife Karen Stachel, and they've got a beautiful album here called Movement to Egalitaria. And this is a very fine day that they put out in 2018. They do have some new things coming up, but they are going to be performing here in the Bay Area coming up over at the SF Jazz Center. And I think it's going to be just really a wonderful time for folks to go and check out the great work of Norbert Stachel, who is one of our illustrious homies here in the Bay Area, who went to New York and made good. And then Karen, who also lived in the Bay Area and is also back east making good, which is always, always great. So I want to welcome both of you here to Jazz 91 KCSM. Norbert, ¿cómo estás? How are you, bro?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Chuy.
I know, man. It's been a while, bro. It's been a while. But I know that, Karen, you too have made the trek over here. How was the trip?
Oh, it was pretty good. No issues, We got through the security fine.
Well, these days you got to watch out because a lot of people getting stuck for hours, in places, which is great. But we also, just to catch people up, we also did hear a couple of selections from Sarah. We heard Sarah Hanahan doing On the Trail from her album Among Giants, and we heard TK Blue from his new one. But I think, Norbert, that these gigs that you have coming up over at the SF Jazz Center are really going to be great because it's been a while since you've been home and playing some of your music, and you're going to have a very special guest, the great percussionist Giovanni Hidalgo.
Oh, we're blessed to have him be interested in our music, and he's really looking forward to it, he said.
I think that one of the things about Giovanni is that he really has been one of the great innovators of percussion, and the fact that he's still down to earth and and playing with people and letting his music grow. But I think that for you, Norbert, this album, Movement to Egalitaria, was one that we played a lot here at Jazz 91. When it first came out, it was one that made it onto the Jazz Week charts, and it was really, really quite happening. And we heard a piece called Mandela. And for all those years that we spent, bro, over at UC Berkeley, trying to fight to get the university to divest from South Africa, I thought that was something that was quite special, man. Tell me about that tune, man, Mandela.
Well, the name of it was inspired by my desire to see things getting better as far as how people are organized, and this term we use called politics and leadership. And there's an example of how it can be done in an organization that actually truly cares about the people and tries to unify people instead of divide and separate. He was about reunification and freedom and power to the people truly, and leading a country with only good intentions in mind, without hidden agendas. And I wanted to make a tribute, so I gave it that name. And it's a rhythmically it's a kind of a partido alto, a little bit of that vibe, mixed with funk and jazz. And I don't know if there's anything really South African in there, although Giovanni commented he thought it had kind of a South African feeling to it mixed with the Brazilian. That was his comment.
Well, I really like it. I think it really is a great tune. But for you, Karen, I mean, you play, is it just specifically flute that you play?
Yes, I'm a flautist, but I do sing a little bit, and I've spent so many years working on flute, and people always say, I love your singing. It's like, okay. And I just don't even try to sing, it just comes out. But yeah, I'm a flute player, classically trained.
And it's beautiful. I mean, you have really beautiful tone. And but how did you meet Norbert? How did you guys come together?
Actually, you remember the club Rosella's?
Of course.
Yeah, I was playing there with my band, my jazz band, and he came in and sat in the audience, and I was like, who is that guy? He had this big hat on. And he came up afterwards, and he knew the pianist, Muziki Robeson.
Oh, Muziki was a great friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We were neighbors over in East Oakland. Yeah.
And he introduced us.
Oh, man, so we can blame Muziki then.
Yeah. And his pickup line was, would you like to see my flute? It's like, yeah.
I used to drive around with my dad's old Chrysler, 1966 Chrysler 300, and it had a huge trunk, and I used to, like a dummy, keep all my instruments in the trunk. Before the days got really weird where you can't leave the car with stuff in it.
Right,
In the Bay
right.
Area, things have changed, but it did end up getting broken into years later. After that, but I carried this beautiful handmade flute with me in the trunk, and that was my pickup line. I thought I'd interest her as a fellow flutist, interested in gear. I have this really fancy flute, and I asked Muziki if he could introduce us.
Oh, that's cool, man. I love it, man. The jazz musicians love stories, man. But the truth of the matter is that you guys are going to be coming out here and performing over at the SF Jazz Center, as well as and you're going to be there on October the 19th.
Uh-huh.
2 shows at the Joe Henderson Lab at 8:30 p.m. Who are you bringing with you? Who are some of
And
the
also the previous night, San Jose,
Oh no, you'll be at San Jose on the 18th.
on the 18th.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But who are you bringing in town? Who's going to be playing with you?
Well, Dan Feisley, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right.
It's very good.
We played a couple times together when I was a sideman for Ray Oviedo, not maybe a couple years ago. We played at the California Jazz Conservatory over in Berkeley, and he was playing bass, and he sounded great. And he's a first call player that reads his butt off and plays great. He delivers. He knows what to do. So this will be his debut performance with us. We're bringing our regular drummer out from the East Coast, Dan Gonzalez.
Oh,
who's
right
a
on.
wonderful player who lived here for a short time, and he used to play with Pete's band, with Pete Escovedo,
Wow.
and also with Passion and Grace.
Yeah, no, I have to tell you that there's been so many great musicians that have come through, and when you mention the names of people like Pete Escovedo, it's like you, man. I mean, you got mentored by some great musicians over the years when you were coming up. From Berkeley High on. I mean, which was really really cool. But right now, I queued up a track that is on the new Giovanni Hidalgo album that you guys were involved with. It's called Jubilation, and it's a great tune written by the great Benny Golson. And I love this tune, and we dedicate it to the memory of the great Benny Golson. And you want to set this one up for us, Karen? I mean, Whisper Not, and perhaps, how it was for you guys on the session,
Well, I really wasn't planning on playing on this, and he said Giovanni wanted flute, and I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And and it was so slow. This tempo was like so slow. So it was really interesting just to play this song, and I love the song "Will Weep for Me."
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah. Well, no, this is the one, the Whisper Not,
Whisper Not.
Oh.
the Benny Golson classic. Well, let's play it, and we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
nice. Whisper Not from the new album for Giovanni Hidalgo titled Jubilation. And this is one that features our guests, Norbert Stachel and his wife, Karen Stachel. But I made a mistake, folks. That was not Karen on the flute. That was Norbert. And, well, I'll tell you, when you guys vibe together, you vibe together, which is great, man. Because I think the family that plays together stays together, and there's something to be said for that. But it's a great version of a great song, which I think is very, very cool. And Norbert, that was you playing. What did you say? Alto flute?
Yes.
It sounds great, man. And and I love being able to hear Benny Golson's music done in this way, which I think is really, really cool. Having just lost him, a few weeks ago. But the thing about, Les Cats is that, this really has got a sound that it really is just you guys. And on here, you really have a who's who of people, which is really great. And I think that, when you talk about organizing, a very fine recording like this one, that you definitely need to pull some folks out. Tell us who are some of the people that are on board, man, for this Giovanni recording, man.
Oh, for Giovanni's, for Jubilation?
Yeah.
He did this recording in steps. He did part of it in Puerto Rico.
Ah.
And it's kind of interesting. He worked on it in conjunction, which he'll explain here on the air with you on Sunday as well, in more in depth than I can, because there's a trumpet player and one other, I think, a bass player, and I'm forgetting their names right now. They're in Puerto Rico, and they were part of, I think they're the original cats from Batucambele.
Oh, right on, man.
And I think they're on it, along with the Institute of Culture in Puerto Rico,
Right.
kind of put this together for Giovanni. So he actually had some top level college students, as for political reasons they wanted to give them a chance, and also kind of show the masters and the students, or the rising stars of Puerto Rico in conjunction. And then after I came on board, and then I added stuff and stacked stuff with some other good friends. Juanga Lacunza on trombone, who's a wonderful trombone player from Spain. He's Basque, from the Basque region in Spain. He's playing with everybody in New York now. He's playing with the Spanish Harlem Orchestra with Mitch Froman.
Sure.
He's playing with Arturo O'Farrell, with the Afro-Latin group. I forget. He changes the name so many times. I forget what he calls it now. And he's like one of the first call trombone players, not just for Latin jazz, for everything. And he's killer, and he's on here, and we have a nice sound together.
Well, it's a great recording, and I think that, this has just been released, folks. So if you're looking for some good Latin jazz, check this one out. You can find it on all the streaming platforms. But Karen, for you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started playing the flute, and what gravitated you toward jazz? What made you want to pick this music as your music of choice?
Well, my dad was a jazz saxophone player in the Army, and he had his own band, and I was raised around that, and I just always gravitated towards jazz. They always had it playing in the house. But in school, I learned how to be a classical musician in school, and I wanted to do that. And my dad was pushing me to do that because it would be so much easier, he thought, to be a classical flutist than a jazz flutist. But that wall has not broken yet, the classical for African Americans.
Wow.
It's still not letting people in. Actually, I started my own orchestra for this reason. And so I would love to play classical, but I would love to play jazz, and it's more, I don't know if I could choose which one, but I'm doing a lot now with the jazz world, so that's what I'm doing.
And you're doing it well, which I think
Thank
is
you.
very, very cool. But I remember this guy when he was in the Berkeley High School Jazz Band. And, this was one of the...
Kennedy High.
Kennedy
But
High.
I hung out with Peter Alphabet.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I always thought you were in the Berkeley High Band for some reason.
I went to Kennedy.
Kennedy High. Get down, man, But But I think that you had this education, and there was a group of musicians at the time that all have gone on to become great musicians. Peter Applebaum, you know
Benny
what I mean?
Green.
Benny Green, you know what I mean?
Greg Handy.
Greg Handy, man. You know, Charlie Hunter, all these
Charlie
guys that have, you know, really been able to break through some of these walls that really existed.
Joshua Redman.
Joshua Redman, exactly, man. You know, but talk about that era, you know, when you were coming up, and you know all the opportunities, you know, that perhaps were there to get, you know, a proper education, but also to play.
Well, the Bay Area, you know, when we grew up, when we were a little more youthful in years, which we still are in our hearts, you know, it was a fertile scene. Remember, there was just, we were talking earlier before the program started, there was so much great music combining from different cultures. You know, Latin, Afro-Caribbean, rock, soul, funk, blues, everything. And it was all Middle Eastern.
Right.
You know, Jewish. It was all the stuff was like coming together in interesting ways naturally because, hey, are you available? Yeah. I'm like, hey, who are you? Hey, I like the way you sound. I think, hey, that sounds cool. Hey, you know, and it was like a bombardment of flavors, like in fusion cuisine. And it doesn't seem like that's quite the same way nowadays here. I mean, that kind of happens in Europe a lot, like in Paris, you know, but that was part of my experience growing up playing music, is all these different things. And it wasn't hard to go from one genre of playing, you know, in Richmond, we grew up with R&B music.
Right.
You know, and soul and gospel and blues and jazz. And then go to the Oakland scene, and then go to the San Francisco scene, and then there's the salsa scene, and the Pete Escovedo scene, and I mean, all these great things were happening, you know.
And you guys brought it all together with the hieroglyphics ensemble, man, you know, which was very, very cool.
Yeah, the genius of Peter Applebaum, the things that he was so influenced to do and inspired to do, you know, and I looked up to that, and I wanted to be part of that and learn from that too.
Yeah,
along
that was
with everything
great.
else, you know.
Well, I think too is that, you know, we also had the exposure of a lot of great venues. You know, there was a lot of places that we could. I mean, you mentioned, you know, meeting homeboy here at Rosella's. You know what I mean? A great spot that always was very welcoming. You know, for musicians. But you know, in the East Bay, we used to have places like Rocky Jones's Scarab. You know,
that was the hangout.
That was the hangout. And there
I played there with a Ghanaian band called Hejole Sounds.
I remember them, man.
Remember them?
Yeah.
With Rim Obeng.
Yes, man. And then
on drums, and Rocky, the guy with no teeth, who played with Hendrix at Woodstock. He played with Jimi Hendrix at Woodstock, and he was the conguero in that band.
I mean, you got a great memory, brother. that was very cool. But we're going to listen to a tune from the great album that both Norbert and Karen Stachel put together called Movement to Egalitaria with their band Les Cats. And this is one that you're on, Karen, playing both C flute and piccolo. It's called Step on It. Is that in referring to you driving?
Actually, it's referring to Norbert driving.
Karen's the designated driver because I used to have a bad reputation for always coming late to things or last minute. So I bought fast cars, and I'd step on it to try to get to the gig on time.
right, Norbert. Did you get a ticket for that one, man? for stepping on it, man.
I think we just barely made it on time.
Oh man, I always thought that you came and hung out with us on 23rd with the lowriders, man. With the lowriders, man. It's like, but it's true that that the legacy of Norbert Stachel and his wonderful wife Karen, it was one that is quite luminary. I mean, Norbert has played with a who's who of people. I mean, I could go down. You spent time with Tower of Power. You played with the great Boss Skaggs. You went on and did a whole bunch of great pop gigs and the whole deal. And you probably could have been doing that the rest of your life, Norbert. You know what I mean? On the road, doing all that. What made it? What made you shift into low gear, man?
I wouldn't say necessarily the downhill slope. You got to go to first gear for that so you don't crash. But I wanted to live life. I wanted to have a meaningful, good, nice relationship with my wife, and not be gone all the time, and just have this so-called quote-unquote musician's life. I mean, you could do both, but I guess part of it was I kind of didn't like the road very much, in a lot of ways. Sometimes things, and I wanted to always I had an underlying desire to do my own thing, to be part of something creative where I had a voice. And in all these other things I did, I kind of felt like my own personal musical creative voice was somewhat stifled. I couldn't quite be myself. And then with Karen, she's the one that encouraged me to kind of do something together and make music together and bounce off of each other as co-writers and develop a sound. I didn't quite have the inner drive to do it on my own as an individual. For whatever reasons, I couldn't connect with that part of myself that well.
Well, maybe you didn't, but we did. Because I remember many times hearing you blowing your brains out, bro, and just bringing the crowd to their feet. I mean, you really were and still are a very spectacular instrumentalist. And if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Norbert and Karen Stachel. They've got some great gigs coming up. They're going to be over at the SF Jazz Center on Saturday, October 19th, with 2 shows at the Joe Henderson Lab at 7 and 8:30 p.m. You can get details there at sfjazz.org. And then on October the 18th, they are going to be, this coming Friday, they're going to be over at the San Jose Jazz Break Room at 310 South 1st Street in San Jose, which I think is a really, really cool. And you can get details there by going to sanjosejazz.org. But Karen, for you, tell us about, your track here in the Bay Area. You had your bands. I mean, you were playing a lot of great music. And I've heard somewhere that you've been described as having played acid jazz.
Yeah.
Were you dropping it, man?
No, it's just I started my band and just trying to play all the time. And most of the clubs that I went to were like Paradise Lounge,
right,
and Up and Down, and
those were good days, man.
Yeah, and they wanted more of a rock sound.
Yeah.
In a lot of
the
these
elbow
places.
room,
Yeah, and so I just that was the thing, is acid jazz. It's a combination of rock and jazz, basically. And so that's what we started doing so that we could fit into these clubs.
Right. But you guys did it well, though. You know what I mean? Because the places that you mentioned, I used to frequent. And I would frequent. Why? Because I had friends. I'd go to the Up and Down Club because Josh Jones was playing at the Up and Down Club. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd go, to the Elbow Room, because this is kind of where the jazz DJ thing started happening. I had my friend Vinny Esparza spinning there. I'd go see Vinny, I'd go see the Brazilian cats. I'd see Charlie Hunter at the Elbow Room, It was just all these great things that were happening, which I think were very cool. But, when you actually moved to New York, how did you see the scene when you arrived to the Big Apple?
Well, I just started to go to jam sessions, basically. And we just tried to go to at least once a week, But we just, actually, there was a circuit, because you start at one time, you start at the music union. They had a jam session, I started at 7 or something. And then after that, you go to Dizzy's. They had a jam session before. I don't know if they still do. So you sit there, and that's where I met Robert Glasper. He was doing the jam session. And then after that's done, you go over to Smoke. They have one till I think 1 in the morning or something. And you just do, and you just meet people that way. That's how I met a lot of musicians who played on my other record, the first one I did when I moved to New York. So that's basically it. I just did jam sessions and just meeting people.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
Well, right now we're going to listen to one that features Karen. This is with the Giovanni Hidalgo album, Jubilation. And this is Willow Weep for Me. And you had alluded to it before we were talking that it was this slow tempo. But it's such a beautiful song. Tell me, how did you approach something like this?
Well, it was already laid out. The pianist already did his part. So I had to go with him. And Norbert was producing it. And he says, just do exactly what the pianist does melody-wise. So that was the tricky part, because you want to just elaborate and do your own thing when you got to follow this. So it was interesting, but you have to check it for yourself.
Oh, let's check it out. The wonderful company here this afternoon of Karen Stachel and Norbert Stachel, who have got some great gigs coming up. So hey, do check it out at sanjosejazz.org and sfjazz.org. Oh, I have to say, Karen, you did a magnificent job. That is really such a beautiful piece. And it's nice to hear it with that little Latin setting, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
little bolero kind of thing, which is really, really nice, which I really dig. But has Latin music been any kind of influence on you? Has it been any kind of special attraction to your musical taste?
Oh yeah, I've always loved it. I was always attracted to Brazilian music. Being a flute player, that fits right there with flute. And I guess I learned more about Latin music when I met Norbert. He was totally into all of that.
Oh,
And
yes.
so it's just been a learning experience, because African American. I was raised with R&B and jazz. Basically that's
But you're a
it.
fan of Dave Valentine, right?
Of course, Dave Valentine. He's like one of my idols. But
Dave was great,
He
man.
was great.
Dave was great. I knew Dave well, man. He was, it's like I remember I interviewed Dave when I was at K-Jazz, and after that, he never called me by my name. He goes, there he comes, K-Jazz. He was so funny, man. He really was. But Norbert, you were weaned. Both you and I met at a salsa workshop with Carlos Federico, over at the East Bay Center for the Performing Arts back in the day. And
That's
when
right.
we all had this Latin band, this collective that we had, Norbert who played in our band, Salsa Unida we called ourselves, and we played La Peña, we played at Ashkenaz, we played all over the place. But Norbert was always one of these guys that he wanted to try everything, all right? So the deal is that he goes, no, I don't don't want to play saxophone today. Let me play bass. And he started playing bass and trying to figure out a tumbao, and then he'd get bored. He said, let me play sax. And then, he was all over the place. But, that was special. You were pretty good at the Latin thing. And actually, Latin music has been good to you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a love for it. I've always been attracted to that music because it's so unique, and it combines what I was speaking of earlier, combining different cultures, because you hear Spanish in it, you hear African in it, you hear Mediterranean sounds. I come from a Jewish background, and I hear that in it too. The from Spain, from
Yes.
pre-Inquisitional Spain, that vibe, that feeling, that soul is in there. And and there's also jazz.
They call it duende, brother. Duende.
Okay. And so I've always loved that, and it can go so many different directions.
Yeah, but look, you played with the great Tito Puente. You played with Celia Cruz. You played with so many wonderful musicians in New York, in particularly these big band settings. Those must have been really enlightening experiences, man.
And they continue to be as long as they don't stop calling me.
So what Latin bands are you playing with now, man?
Well, sometimes bass player, the great John Benitez, who's on a couple of the songs that you played over the air just from our record earlier. He goes way back with Giovanni and everybody. Karen and I were attending a church that he belongs to, that he brought us in to play, and we were seeing him every Sunday, and doing that. And John calls me to play sometimes. Sometimes he calls Karen to play different things he gets. I play with the Mambo Legends Orchestra.
Oh, that's a great band.
I have a gig coming up with them. With Mitch Froman calls me, and I do that. And that's a lot of fun. A lot of the cats are still alive. The original people from the Tito Puente Orchestra.
That's right. I think it's really, really great. But we're about to play a piece that I believe, Karen, you wrote it. It's called Celia's Bomba. And tell us a little bit. Set this one up for us.
Okay. I was watching a documentary about Celia. Actually, it was like
Celia Cruz.
Celia Cruz. It was a mini series, and it was very interesting. And I just fell in love with her music. And she did this bomba thing in a lot of her music, and I just wanted to get that sound. So I figured it out, how to do the rhythm and all that, and wrote this song. Called it Celia's Bomba.
Let's check it out. Our guest this afternoon, we've got Norbert and Karen Stachel here, Lake Cats, and they are going to be performing at a couple of great spots. They're going to be over Friday night over at the San Jose Jazz Break Room. You can get details at sanjosejazz.org. And then they're going to be over at the SF Jazz Center on October the 19th with special guest Giovanni Hidalgo, one of the greats in percussion. So do stay tuned. Let's identify ourselves, and then let's get into a little Celia's Bomba.
KCSM and KCSM HD1, San Mateo, San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, at 91.1 FM, the Bay Area's jazz station.
I tell you, folks, I'm having too much of a good time over here with Norbert and Karen, man. I'll tell you, they definitely have been uplifting my afternoon. But we heard Celia's Bomba as well as Mopar's song, and this is totally cool. And apparently, Karen, you are a cat lover.
I am definitely a cat lover.
And Mopar's song was dedicated to who?
To our cat Mopar.
That is totally cool, man. I think sometimes that cats tend to align with jazz probably more than dogs. You know what I mean? There's just something about their vibe, you know. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why we always call each other cats in jazz, you know.
In fact, one of our other songs is called Nine Lives.
Well, there's definitely a great influential thread there, which I think is really, really cool. But, you know, it really has been a pleasure having both of you here. And I think these gigs are really going to be great for you, reuniting with a lot of wonderful friends here in the Bay Area, but also sharing your very wonderful music. And I know you guys played a major role in this album by Giovanni Hidalgo, Jubilation. And, but what have you guys got coming up under your own? I mean, under Norbert and Karen Stachel, man.
Well, we have a new record in the works that we're working on. Most of the material has been finished, but we haven't recorded it yet. And when we get back from this trip, that's our next project.
I think that should be great, yeah.
Because it's been a long time coming since our last release. And, we've been playing on other people's stuff. But now we need to do our next Le Cats record.
I like it, man. I love it, man. How did you... And the name itself, Le Cats, you know what I mean?
Actually, that's our name spelled backwards.
Yes, Stachel starting with the L. That's what it is.
Oh, man, I tell you, I know you went to Berkeley. How Berkeley can you be, man? You know what I mean? That is totally cool. But how about for you, Karen? I know that, a couple of years ago, you graced us with a wonderful Christmas album, man. You know what I mean? You working on anything on your own?
Well, I'm working on Michel Legrand's music.
Oh, wow.
I'm doing about 10 or 11 of his pieces. And I love his music, and I can't wait to get this out there because I think people are going to really dig it.
So that's the second other project that we're going to sink our teeth into when we get back home.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing it, particularly at a time when, I don't know, really the viability of recording is one that can be difficult. I mean, it costs a lot to record, and the gain is not as prevalent as it used to be. I mean, so I think that a lot of it really is being done for the sake of the art, which I think is really great.
And sharing what you're driven to do that you want other people to experience.
That's beautiful, man. That's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. That's great. Well, I want to thank both of you. We're going to go out with a piece called Giovanniology. And tell us about this one, Norbert.
Okay, so this is one of the songs from Giovanni's release, Jubilation. And when he presented it to me and he asked me to help him complete this production, this particular song didn't have a melody on it. All it had was piano. It didn't have bass on it either. It had all of his layered percussion and piano, nothing else, no more, no less. So I came up with a bass line. I actually played the bass on a keyboard. I played bass too, but the keyboard was right there. It was easy. I got the sound. So I played bass through the entire song. Then I wrote a melody, and then I wrote a bunch of monias and mambo sections, and I arranged it for the horn section, and we did it. And Karen's on there playing flute, and Juanga Lacunza's on there playing trombone, and a couple other friends. Phil Adams on trumpet. No, actually, he's not on this one. Les Rogers is playing trumpet, and I layered all the saxes, and it came out pretty good.
Oh, very
It's a cool song.
Yeah. Karen, anything you want to say to folks to encourage them to come out to visit you guys at the SF Jazz Center at the San Jose Jazz Break Room?
You should all come. It's going to be fun, and hopefully it's inspirational.
And if Norbert owes you money, this is the place to catch up with him.
Exactly.
All right, you guys. Love you, man. Thank you.
Love you too.
Thank you.
Jazz in the Afternoon with Jesse Chuy Varela on KCSM Jazz 91.